A young, healthy child, well nursed, is, at a year old, a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled. This excerpt comes from Jonathan Swift's essay titled A Modest Proposal. I've always been fascinated by statements like this. They're all around us, and I found them all the way from author Mark Twain to internet memes. So what is it? Satire. Satire is the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule in order to expose or criticize stupidity, vices, or shortcomings. It can be a subtle nudge, or, like in Swift's example, a slap to the face. Each time an author writes, they write with a purpose. Obviously, Swift's purpose was not to get people to eat their babies. Rather, he used the extreme example in order to highlight the dire situation of poverty. And I would bargain that if you had read that without knowing of its satirical background, you would be quite disturbed. And that's why today I'm going to tell you why authors use satire, some of its innate flaws, and some of the best literary examples. There are two types of satire. The first is Juvenalian. This is the dark side of humor that makes you feel really bad for laughing. It's typically scathing and abrasive. One example of this comes from William Golding's Lord of the Flies. In this book, there's a group of boys stranded on an island. While on this island, the boys think that there is a beast lurking. One boy, Simon, stumbles across this beast and figures out that it's actually just human remains. When he goes to tell the other boys, he finds them around a fire, chanting and screaming in a crazed state of savagery. While in this state, when they see Simon, they immediately think he is the beast and attack and kill him with their bare hands and teeth. To parallel this, the adults of the book are at war doing the same things. To emphasize this point even further, one boy asks, "We did everything the adults would do. What went wrong?" Well, that was exactly their problem. The second type is Horatian satire. This is the lighthearted, funny, ironic type. One of my favorite examples of this comes from an episode of The Office titled Diversity Day. In this episode, everyone is given a literal race card to put on their forehead, and they must be treated and talked to like they were that race. Many woke entertainment critics found this very offensive. They called it obscene. But if you look past the surface level, you'll see that they used Horatian satire to show that sometimes the stereotypes we give people actually negatively impact true diversity. So why do authors use satire? Well, would you rather read a dissertation about why racism is bad? Or would you rather watch a group of bumbling idiots walk around being borderline racist, making you so incredibly uncomfortable that it is abundantly clear that racism is bad? Satire is the most entertaining way to bring up social issues that would be hard to talk about otherwise. Now you might be thinking, well, if there are examples all around us, why don't I ever find them? Am I dumb or something? Well, I can't answer the latter, but I can tell you why you may not find satire all that often. Say you're sitting on the couch scrolling through the internet, and you see a meme about how hard it is to get to your Zoom class. You might breathe out your nose a little more forceful than normal in an attempt to laugh, and then keep scrolling. You have missed the satire. Satire requires analysis. Another reason satire can be tricky is that it's based on personal experience. The Onion, for example, is a famous satirical news site. One of their recent articles says, "Reluctant Democrats holding off on revealing Biden died of heart attack 6 days ago." If somehow you weren't aware that Biden is roughly 134 years old and in relatively poor health, then you wouldn't understand the satire, leading you to misunderstand the article. See where thinking comes into this? Well, buckle up, because I'm going to tell you where to find some of the best literary examples. Some authors understand the intricacies of satire so well that some of their books are even required for high schools. The first is none other than Mark Twain in his book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. There is a plethora of ironic examples that the characters in the book disregard as normal because they live in a naturally racist society. One example of this comes from Huck's pap, when he says, "They said he was a professor in college and could talk all kinds of languages and knowed everything, and that ain't the worst. They said he could vote." While admitting that a black man knowed more than he does, he's shocked that he can vote? Oh, the irony. Another example that many have read in high school is George Orwell's political satire, 1984. This was written in 1949 in the wake of World War II, when Germany and Russia were inching towards totalitarian regimes. The book is a Juvenalian satire, the dark and scary kind, about what could happen if government was not kept in check. The author proves his points by using irony and exaggeration. The motto of the country is, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." And some characters in the book sincerely believe that 2 + 2 = 5, just because the government says that it is 5. The book clearly warns of government overreach, suppression of speech, and most importantly, restriction of ideas. Some things that you could argue are happening today. And if they don't stop, Orwell's future may prove true. Being able to understand the Horatian style of Huck Finn and the Juvenalian style of 1984 are very important if you want to be able to find satire for yourself. If you find something that is ironic, exaggerated, or that conjures a laugh, ask yourself what the author wants you to think about. In summary, we've talked about why authors use satire in the different types, and why they use humor and irony to talk about things like racism or corrupt governments. We also see that satire is not without flaw. It can be too subtle, especially if you don't have experience in the subject. I hope that you will return to these books that we've talked about today, that many of you may have even read in high school and forgotten about, and you'll read past the plot and rediscover the true purpose of the writings. Or find it for yourself. I'm not your mom.